Hi, I'm Dr. Demento, and you're watching U68.
New special from U68. A special on a very touchy, some would say explosive issue. Should music be rated? Are the young people in this country being subjected to objectionable lyrics in music? And should they be rated? Some members of the United States Senate and a group called Parents Music Resource Center think so. In fact, on the 19th of September, the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation held hearings dealing with what was termed by one senator, rock porn. Now, a number of recording artists testified before that committee, including Frank Zappa, who made his feelings clearly known. Frank Zappa is our guest on this U68 News special, and we'll discuss this controversial topic of music ratings right after this. The guest, Frank Zappa, who testified in Washington before a Senate committee on the 19th of September. Frank, first of all, welcome. I know you've got a very busy schedule working. You're basically, to use your words, on the stump.
I'm stumping it.
Why don't we just quickly review what went on in Washington, how you were called, how you got involved in taking on a massive undertaking?
Well, first of all, I didn't get called. I called them. I got involved in this about 9 weeks ago when I debated a woman named Candy Stroud on the CBS Night Match News in Washington, D.C. And the result of that debate was the show was supposed to be a 1-hour debate. And all the commercials were rolled in and all the video clips were rolled in. It was done in front of a live audience. We had conversations with the audience, and the show was taped a week in advance, and I thought everything was fine. Okay, but they held the show back for a week, and they cut out most of what I said, and the show wound up being maybe about a half an hour long, and the whole structure of the show was changed. And I thought, wait a minute, somebody doesn't want to hear what I got to say here. And I started doing some checking, and I got really mad. And I also heard that even at that time that they were planning on having a hearing in front of the Senate. And at that time, it was supposed to be in front of the Goldwater Communications Subcommittee. So I had my lawyer call Goldwater's office and say I would like to attend. But eventually, the thing got moved from Goldwater's subcommittee to the full committee. Now, let's look at a couple of interesting things about why it wound up in the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee. I've been told that Senator Paula Hawkins, who also testified there, who is the chairperson of the Senate Committee on Children, Family, Drugs, and Alcohol, which might have been a better committee to hear this matter in, was originally contacted by the PMRC to have the hearing in her committee. And for some reason, it didn't wind up there, which would have been the appropriate place. It wound up...
Excuse me, the PMRC, for those of you that may not be informed at the moment, is the Parents Music Resource Committee.
Center.
A group that 6 months ago, unheard of, and all of a sudden, a national power at this point.
Well, I think they've been a national power since they got married. These are all women who are married to people who are prominent in the United States government. One of the ladies is Susan Baker. She's married to the Secretary of Treasury. The other prominent spokesman is Tipper Gore. She is married to Senator Albert Gore, Democrat, Tennessee. Anyway, the committee hearing in front of the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee, I believe, was put there for one reason, because on that committee, they had 5 husbands of the different ladies who had signed the original PMRC demands of the record company. Now, I think there's a conflict of interest in that. I think that it's more like a Soviet Union show trial to do a thing like that. If it's supposed to be a fact-finding committee, and sitting on the committee, you already have husbands of people who are connected with the group that is bringing the issue before the public. Also,
but you did get the chance to bring your issue before the public, did you not?
But the fact of the matter is, the hearing shouldn't have even been heard at all. The issue that they're talking about is pitifully insignificant. I don't think that music lyrics turn people into a social liability. All the things that they complain about in terms of bad behavior could more easily be attributed to Saturday morning cartoons or to watching hockey on television than some of the things they're talking about. They're worried about bad behavior, and they're trying to blame masses of unpleasant social behavior in the United States on the rock and roll industry. And to that, I say, you have to be kidding.
But there are some unpleasant aspects of the rock and roll.
Rock and roll does not make the time. Rock and roll does not make the times. Songs reflect the times. And if you don't like the way things are in the United States right now, look to your own home and the way you raised your own kids. Look to the school the budget for which you have cut back in order to be a prudent, sort of conservative kind of individual. If the schools are not good and if your home is not good, you're not going to solve these matters by sticking ratings on rock and roll albums or allowing the government to get involved in the raising of your children. They failed at all this stuff and all the other social programs. Why are they going to be good at this one? Get them out of the way. Any parent with what they would deem a legitimate concern, if they go to this rating system as a solution for their concern, they're either lazy or incredibly uninformed on the subject.
Didn't you one time rate your albums?
I've never rated them.
Did you have a sticker on your album?
I put stickers on, but what my sticker says is, this album contains material that a truly free society would neither fear nor suppress. And then it goes on to guarantee the consumer that if they buy the album and listen to what's inside, hearing the lyrics will not send them to hell. So I think that's a fair way to let people know what's going on in there. And I've done that on a couple of albums already. But the rating issue is a cover-up for some other things. I've maintained that. The people in Washington like to deny it. But we'll see what happens after the 30th.
We have a video segment, perhaps one of the things that the PMRC is against, and we can roll that and take a look at just what they feel they're up against when it comes to rating music and music videos. That should be coming along shortly. We'll take a look at that. What some may call unnecessary violence, but one of the videos that you mentioned is not on their hit list.
Well, I don't think that one's on their objectionable list. But see, remember, this issue has been confused by the existence of videos. The original matter that they brought up is about lyrics, okay? They started complaining about lyrics, but have spread the base to now include videos. And the reason they've gotten so much coverage on the media is national news likes to pick this up because it can make a colorful story. They illustrate the point, just like you did, by showing a video. And if videos did not exist, I don't think they would have gotten as far as they've gotten in making this a big stink in the United States. Because it makes a nice little news thing. They cut some rock videos together. The announcer says, well, are our children being corrupted? What's going to happen here? And you decide. You know. Meanwhile, they're selling deodorant. They're selling Tupperware. In the case of the ABC Nightline show that they did, they were selling diamonds from South Africa. They were selling Cadillacs. They were selling BMWs.
But is there not, frank, confusion in the music industry, too? You've got Mike Love from the Beach Boys donating $5,000 to the PMRC. You've got Smokey Robinson, the vice president, I believe, of Motown Records, coming out in against rock porn. So you're also going up against some of the members of your own industry.
I'm not going up against...
Well, you are in a sense, aren't you?
No, but understand this. I speak only as an individual. I happen to be a record company owner. I have a company called Barking Pumpkin Records. I'm a songwriter, I'm a song publisher, and I'm a performer. And basically what's happening is, as a citizen and as a person who earns his living doing those things, when I see the government getting ready to mess around with my business, I've got just as much right as the local shoe store guy to go in and complain about his business, okay? And what Mike Love thinks, what Smokey Robinson thinks, what Sting thinks, what anybody thinks, that's their business. And if they want to make their opinions known, they should make their opinions known. Okay? I'm not interested in arm wrestling with these people. At this point, I'm doing what I can as a private citizen to say what I think, and if they are going to try and put this across on the United States population, they're not going to be able to do it as easy as they thought they would.
How's it going to hurt you to have an R rating on your album?
Well, the main thing that it's not just me, it's going to hurt anybody.
How's it going to hurt anybody?
Okay. Certain record companies have already backed out of the RIAA plan because they've been told by Sears, J.C. Penney's, that if you send me an album with any sticker on it, we're not going to rack it. And so A&M backed out, Geffen backed out, and MCA backed out. If you can't get it into the store, how can you sell it? That's how it can hurt you. Camelot, which is a chain of record retail outlet places in shopping malls, have been told by their landlords, if you rack the stuff, you're not going to get your lease. They're not going to renew the lease. So there's a lot of pressure in the marketplace. I mean, the ladies, maybe they have good intentions. I don't know. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. But the net result of their tactics is somewhat chaotic. And it's not over yet. Just because the hearing was on the 19th, that doesn't mean we had an argument and everybody went away. There's still stuff going on.
In the 1950s, a young man came out, appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show. They had to shoot him from the waist up. His name was Elvis Presley. In the 70s, there was a song, Louie Louie by the Kingsmen, that was checked for objectionable lyrics. It went on to Spiro Agnew talking about the drug culture. Where will it end? We'll pick up on that when we come back. This is a new special for you on U68, and the topic, of course, is should music be rated? Will music be rated? Can it survive? Our guest today is Frank Zappa, and what we were discussing going into the break was back in the 1950s when Elvis Presley appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show. The camera took him from the waist up because of the hip gyrations. In the 1960s, it was Louie Louie by the Kingsmen. There was a question about the lyrics in that. In the 1970s, there was an awful lot of objection, particularly by then Vice President Spiro Agnew, talking about the drug culture and what it was doing to people through music. And now in the 1980s, we're worried about explicit music, objectionable words within music and lyrics. And the question is, to Frank Zappa that I have, is that things have gotten progressively worse in the decades, from the 50s through the 80s, as far as what people are objecting to. What's going to happen in the 90s?
Look, the songs reflect what's going on in the society. Let's just say that if you think the lyrics are uglier today, look around you. The world is uglier than it was in 1950. Okay? And I think that if you find lyrics objectionable in songs and you find that the material is harsh and you can't take listening to it, maybe the better way to fix it is to fix your world. And then these guys who write songs won't keep reminding you of how ugly stuff really is.
Should artists police themselves?
No.
Not at all.
That's not an artist's job. What are you going to do? Oh, I got an idea. I see the world that's ugly. I'm going to put my hand over my mouth and smack my hand? No. If you're really an artist, you got a right to not only say what you think, but you have an obligation to share that as a piece of art with the people who might benefit from hearing that point of view, because artists provide a point of view that news people never will.
Isn't it kind of a vicious circle, however? Doesn't one artist perhaps see what's selling for another artist and perhaps kind of copy?
That's not art. That's commerce.
Or how many people are commerce and not artists then within the industry?
Well, the industry basically is a commercial industry. I mean, if you're talking about art, I think that what I do is art because my motivation has got nothing to do with going out there and having a hit record. And I got a track record to prove that at 20 years. But there are people that you may have never even heard of because they haven't had any hit records either, that believe in what they're doing. They want to just make music. They want to write their own songs. They want to say what's on their mind. They have a right to do it. Okay? And they shouldn't wake up every day and say, well, how am I going to police myself in order to please Tipper Gore or Susan Baker? The answer is these people have a non-issue here. The answer is if you are concerned about social conditions, don't blame it on rock and roll. The blame does not go there. Take responsibility in your own home for your own children and reinvestigate what it's going to take to make the United States school system into something that really educates rather than an enormous warehousing system for people with mysterious hair. You know, put some bucks into that. And let's, you know, you want to take care of the kids? The kids spend time in school. They spend time at home. And you shouldn't neglect the idea of what they do in their recreational hours. Some cities try and punish the young people in the town by refusing to put up facilities that give the kids a chance to hear music in comfort. I mean, have you ever heard of an American city that wanted to build a facility where you could go to see a rock concert, which is what kids do like to do, a rock concert with good acoustics, clean toilets, and safe facilities? Be concerned about kids? Take care of the things that kids like and things they like to do. Make that part of their life more enjoyable. Don't treat them as just this blob of potential consumers with no rights, because remember, they do have rights. They can vote.
But at that point, shouldn't you then refuse to do a concert in an area that doesn't measure up to your specifications?
You can't, because there aren't any.
There are none? There are none in this country?
Well, I can name one, and that's the Universal Amphitheater in Los Angeles, which is a rare, rare case.
Have you walked into some places where you've been performing and wonder why you're there?
Well, I know why I'm there, but I also know the reasons why the facilities are so crappy. And since I can't do anything to change that other than talk about it and advise people that if they want to...
Well, can't you change? Can't you help change by talking about it?
That's what I'm doing right now.
Do you think your point will get across, however?
Depends on who's watching and whether or not they have a can of beer in their hand or a needle in their arm or a spoon up their nose. You know, if you have any of those things happening to you, stop it. You know, take it out and think about your community. I mean, I presume that most of the people who are watching this are kids. not their parents.
Mm-hmm.
If their parents are happening to watch, just think about this. When you're considering what you're going to vote for and spend your money on in a local election for bond issues and things like that, it is a false economy to save money on schools. You have to pay teachers what they're worth, and you have to pay better salaries so that you get better teachers. Because the better teachers are going to make life better for you as a parent as your children grow up, and they can earn more money, and they can have a happier life. They're the ones who are going to be taking care of you when you're old, okay? Think of it from a selfish point of view like that. Also think that the kids have a right to a good education. I'm 44 years old. I wouldn't say that the school I went to was fabulous, but even as mediocre as it was, it's compared to today's schools. I got $1 billion education.
Mm-hmm.
I got out of school and I can spell, I can count, I can read,
Well, New Jersey's taking the lead in that respect. They just passed a law for minimum salaries. That's a whole new story. There have been some unusual teams in the past. We could start with the 1969 New York Mets. We could go to the Cleveland Cavaliers of the late 70s. However, perhaps the most unusual team I've ever heard of is Frank Zappa, along with Donny Osmond. We can throw in John Denver. We can also add Dee Snider. Did that kind of blow your mind?
Teamwork on that level? Well, no. I think that no matter what a guy does for a living or how his hair is or what kind of clothes he wears has nothing to do whether or not the man has logic going.
Were you not surprised by the logic that they professed?
I was delighted rather than surprised. I mean, when John Denver was coming in there to testify, nobody knew what he was going to say. And I know all the senators had their fingers crossed that he was going to be on their side. And I'm sure he caused them discomfort when he compared what was going on in the Senate to Nazi Germany. Or not in the Senate, but in the rating business.
Mm-hmm.
He made a comparison to Nazi Germany, which disturbed them. And when Dee Snider said that the bondage is all in Tipper Gore's mind, I think that the point was very well taken. And when Donny Osmond on television says, if you have these ratings, I'm going to have to put dirty stuff in my record so that I can, make it sell better. I don't think...
A surprise from Mr. Clinton, his reputation.
He's a nice guy. I'd never met him before, but after the show, when the way the show was set up, I was in one little room, he was in another little room, and Candy Stroud was in Washington, D.C. with a bookcase behind her. Like she's the real world, we're these two criminals over on the West Coast. And, in fact, the room that I was sitting in had this white rag on the wall. It was somebody's office, and Donny Osmond was in the hall with the presidential blue background. They had filtered my microphone to make me sound like Billy Barty. They really had to figure out who was going to be the bad guy, who's the clean guy, and who's the right person. And it didn't work out that way, I mean, think of this. Suppose you go on Nightline and Ted Koppel says to you twice in the show, well, Mr. Zappa, you're an intelligent man. Isn't that the equivalent of putting the pointed white paper hat on your head, twice in one show? So it was a little bit weird. And after the show, Donnie comes in and gave him a big hug. I said, I thought it was really great what he was saying. He says, I'm really serious about this. I mean, and if it goes to concert ratings, what could happen? And I said, look, in San Antonio, they are trying to put these ratings on live concerts. And he says, oh my goodness, if I go down there, my concert would get a G. I said, that's right, Donnie.
Frank Zappa versus the Mothers of Prevention.
Meets
the Mothers of Prevention. The title of the new album in your stores now. Kind of a little touchy issue in that. You had to get a little legal advice on the situation.
Well, I've had legal advice all the way along. I mean, this, you don't go into something like this without talking to somebody who knows something. I'm not a lawyer. I had a civics class in high school. I got out of that okay, but for this, you need a lawyer.
What we'll do is just let you hear just a couple of seconds of one of the cuts on the album. Then after you hear it, we'll come back and explain exactly what you've been listening to. To the audience, exactly what we heard.
Well, what you've heard is a song called Porn Wars, which is 12 minutes long. It's not all like that. It's in 3 different sections, and it uses the actual voices of the senators and Reverend Jeff Ling and Tipper Gore in the testimony made before the hearing on September 19th. This is all in the congressional record, and I just made a piece of music out of it. It really gets scary after a while. That's just the beginning. It gets really scary later. It's like a nightmare.
Is there a compromise in this whole issue?
Yeah, there is. Perfect compromise.
And that is?
I'll stop talking about it when they go home.
You're serious, too, when you say that.
I'm serious.
So, in other words, what you're saying is, unless you get your way and there are no ratings, you're not going to be satisfied.
Well, look, I can't control the record industry.
Do you fault the motives of these people?
Yes. I don't.
You don't
trust
think there
them.
are any good intentions at all?
Well, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe there are. But personally, my deep down feeling is this is not sincere. This is not sincere.
And what gives you that feeling?
Because there's a lot of money involved in it.
Explain that.
Well, this is tied up with a piece of legislation which in the House is called H.R. 2911 and in the Senate is called the Matthias Bill. And it's the blank tape tax. And because of the pressure put on the record industry by the wives of the senators and congressmen who will affect record industry legislation on this bill and other pieces of legislation. That's one of the reasons why the record industry agreed earlier to put some kind of a warning on a record. If the husbands of these women didn't have this power over a bill that was worth a lot of money to the record industry, I doubt whether the record industry would have paid any attention to them at all. It's been extortion.
What kind of feedback are you getting from your fans, from the kids out there, from the adults out there?
I would say that it's 99.999999 positive with all the mail and the comments that I've had from people in the street. I mean, there's been very little negative comment that's come to my mailbox or people that I've met on the street. I mean, nobody comes up to me and says, you know, stop it, you're crazy.
You have not stopped.
Literally
not stopped since this all began. All right, let's move 12 months down the road. How do you see the scenario in November 1986? Where do you think you'll be? What do you think the result will be of what's going on?
One thing that I will probably still be doing in 86 is based on who does what on this issue. I will try my best to help them reevaluate their career. I mean, certain people in the Senate and in the Congress who will be coming up for re-election at that time need a message from the American public in this age bracket, not necessarily from their parents, but kids need to realize that, is it the 26th Amendment that gives the 18-year-olds the right to vote? I think that's the one. It wasn't easy to get it. Now that you got it, what are you doing with it, you know? Go down to the post office, register to vote, because you can't vote till you register. And if you've already registered, you have to look at what's going on locally. Don't just wait for the presidential election every 4 years. Look at the local stuff and go out there and vote and take care of it.
The bottom line is we've barely scratched this issue. There's so much to talk about, so much to do, and so little time to do it in. I'd like to thank Frank Zappa for spending just a few minutes with us today. As he's told you, he's on the stump and he's got a very busy schedule. Feel free to address any comments you have to us. You can send them to us. We'll get them to Frank. He might like to see what you have to